Everybody, welcome to the Select Board and Warrant and Finance Committee workshop on the municipal budget. And I'm going to hop right in and start off with our Code Enforcement Officer and Inspector, Mr. Ken Paul.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you.
Our format has changed since last year. Do you guys want me to go down through it, or do you have any questions, or?
Well, I suppose you could, yeah,
Starting
okay,
on
so we are going
page 5,
page
midway
five.
down.
Okay, thank you.
Page 5.
That was going to be my first question.
CEO. That sounds
When you go
important.
through it and tell us what the changes are, do you have the old one and the new?
Correct, yeah. Department head right at the top, no change there.
Oh, we're showing a change, Ken.
Originally, we were told to go 53 weeks, so that should be reduced back to what it was last year.
To 37,904?
Yep, and the same with clerical. Clerical does have an increase, though, that one does increase.
Alright, so the department head will stay at 37,904.
Yep, same as last year.
Okay, so clerical's gonna go to what?
10,530.
Okay, that's the number we have.
That's what you got there? Okay, good.
Okay, and the increase is for?
Additional time with the new secretary and the wages.
Is the wage increasing or just the number of hours?
It's $13.50 an hour, which is an increase, I believe, for 15 hours.
I think your secretary last year was also paid $13.50 an hour, so it's a...
It's a 2-hour increase, is what it is.
2 hour a week?
Yeah.
But the hourly rate's the same?
Yes.
We skipped over Deputy Code Enforcement Office just to cover during vacations and things like that. I usually don't use that line. I'm able to communicate with most people that need inspections and things and work them through. I did have an increase just in case we do use it this year. I believe that line's been zero for several years, though, as far as actual
That's the non-supervisor
expenditures.
one?
Yep.
Okay.
And that's covered for you when you're taking vacation time?
Correct.
The fact, though, that it jumps from 60 to 260, is that,
That is, I am hoping to take more vacation time, use some of it this year.
and how much time does that represent? As far as the 60 and the 260?
We pay him around $25 an hour.
So a little over 2 hours,
10 hours.
So,
excuse me.
So how does that work, Ken? Just it's somebody that we can call if we absolutely have to while you're out of town, but for the most part, the builders and so forth know to get in touch with you prior to the vacation?
correct, it would all come through here, Linda would pick up the message. If not, if it was a day we were closed, like Monday or so, I'd get the message anyways. Or if I was really unable to have a service, he'd be checking the messages on Monday for me. And that way there wouldn't be a glitch. And that would just be covered for inspections, no permit writing or anything like that.
And you share that position with somebody from another town?
Shapley,
Chapley, so he covers for you and you cover?
correct. The benefits is just increases what's required. The federal government rates have gone up, I would assume, and plus the extra 2 hours there. Office supplies, I've got is the same. Training is an increase. When we tried to reduce the budget a few years ago, that was an area I could wipe out. I've added 300 back in that so we can keep up with continuing education, because as my certification go in a 5-year cycle, I could be lax for the first few years, but I've got to pick those hours back up. Equipment, that's just replacing office equipment as it dies. Mileage is up a little bit. I would imagine the federal rate's going to increase, but we've slowed down dramatically compared to what we were years ago, so I think that should balance out a little bit.
So that's based on your IRS rate?
50.5 cents is what they're paying now. The selectmen would have to change that anyways, even if the IRS fluctuated,
Yeah.
that they'd have to actually change it. I think it's been that rate for a long time.
Let's hope it goes up with the price of gas.
And then the miscellaneous is just field equipment, tape measures, rulers, things like that, that need replacing.
Anyone have any questions for Mr. Paul?
No, it's pretty clear cut, I think. It's great.
Agreed.
If we want, I can move into planning board and zoning board while I'm right here.
And that is where?
What page?
We're looking for it.
Mine all say page 1.
Page 1?
I think yours must
See,
be
that,
different.
now you're trying to be tricky, because nothing's ever page 1.
Planning board is page 3.
Page 3.
Page 3.
Got it. Thank you.
Pretty much same as last year's, a $2 increase in the FICA and Medicare.
Which you're in, that's treasury.
Oh.
I'm good with that.
Any other questions? Okay.
Both budgets look very good.
And then do you have one other, or?
Zoning Board of Appeals, I don't have a printout for that, I just have a flat rate of $6.50, so I don't know if you guys have a printout for that or not.
I think that the 650 is, it's simply to cover the secretarial services and advertising
Postings,
services.
yeah.
And we don't expect to need to use that zoning board of appeals very often. Is that a page? I don't-
It falls under page 1, under boards. And that is a combination of board of assessment review and zoning board of appeals. It might be worthwhile to increase if we think that we're going to need it a lot more, but
Which number are you on, Michelle?
page 1, 102-03, general government boards.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So,
So those cover, that's ZBA and BAR?
Yes.
Okay.
Generally, one a year for both of them.
right, and it's already been doubled from last year, you say we should go even higher than that?
That's at your discretion. I mean, it's, the reval comes into it, I think that's why we doubled it this year, more than doubled it this year.
Is the microphones picking up that corner of the room, or, okay, great, thank
So
you.
the Board of Assessment Review, part of that budgeting process should be covered in the money set aside for the revaluation itself. And we did budget for
Right.
those things with O'Donnell and Associates. So I guess I feel very comfortable with the 450 because we're really just looking at secretarial services. We shouldn't be needing, and postings, so we shouldn't be needing very much of the BAR, Board of Assessment Review.
Zoning Board of Appeals, maybe it would take $100 for a case. That is also offset by the revenue of $100 for the appeal. Two different funds in and out, but,
Yeah.
you know, so it is offset. With, there's a lot of proposed planning zone amendments coming up, and that would also reduce a lot of cases that might have been zoning board issues, so that would alleviate any further cases too, so,
And how many cases did you have this year?
just a couple maybe.
Ken is our first line of defense against the ZBA. Yay, Ken. Good
Keep
job.
you out of there. Any questions? Excellent, all right, thank you. Have a
Thanks,
good night.
Ken.
Thank you, Ken.
Have a great night. Okay, is everybody ready to move on to our town clerk, tax collector, registrar of, no, we're not. We're shaking our head no.
Treasurer.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you wanted to go last. I thought you had said that you were last. Oh, please, treasurer, by all means. It's on page 3, starting at the bottom section.
I guess first I want to change that top number back down to 28,600, that's based on 52 weeks. When we were first budgeting, there are 53 paydays in next fiscal year. We have worked it out so that we will pay in this fiscal year a day early, so we'll only have 52 paydays next year. The non-supervisor is deputy's salary. I have two deputies, Jennifer Rue and April Pettingill, and they're in place, both of them are in place to cover collection of lien taxes, because once taxes are liened, they become the treasurer's responsibility. Because it's more common for somebody to go into the tax collector's office to pay for their taxes, whether they're liened or not liened. Jennifer has always accepted that role, and they get a monthly stipend, 4 hours a month, at $13 an hour. There's also a little extra money in there to cover. Jennifer is trained to do payroll and AP in the case that I get to take a vacation or need to use some sick time. Everything else is pretty straightforward. I did remove the audit services from my line. That was in addition to the regular audit. In prior years, they had extra funds in there to have the auditors come in and help them through whatever situations were going on at that time. I think I'm comfortable in the position that I don't need that. So that's a savings of $3,000 there. I did increase the mileage. We have a new policy, whereas at least once a week, depending on how much funds are coming in, the money needs to go to the bank. Doesn't need to sit here. And it was factored a little differently last year. I am currently $8 over budget this year for that line. Fortunately, I can make it up with some of the other lines that are not being utilized. So that's the increase of $250 is mileage just to the bank, to the registry, and any classes that I may need to take. The budget, I mean, it's a good budget. It's reduced from last year by $11,000. The decrease in department head salary is based on we went from a full-time position to a part-time position. Certainly saved the town a lot of money, whereas we don't see the need at this time for all of that extra time. That's pretty much it. Any questions?
Great job, Michelle.
The only question I had, you just answered, so I'm good.
This $3,000, Michelle, you definitely would be okay without that? I know in
Yeah.
the past, that's always been nice to...
I mean, sure, it's probably been nice, but any questions that I've had along the way, I've been able to call Ron Smith or Bruce Netto with RHR Smith. They've answered it over the phone and haven't charged anything.
You work them all out yourself?
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's excellent. I have one question, and it's just in general. I know when you first got here, and maybe the selectman could help out with this too, it had to do with the bond. I think Michelle worked with the bank or something, they insured. What are the details on that? I never got...
We weren't, all of our money was not secure, basically. And we worked with the bank to make sure that the highest dollar amount that the town could take in, that will have in its bank account at one time, will be covered. Currently, it is all covered. So, up to $7 million. I mean, I haven't seen that number in the bank at one time, but, you know, that is close to our budget for our tax commitment and excise taxes and stuff like that. So if all that money came in on one day and was in the checking account, it would all be covered.
And previously, we had, what, 1.2 million?
Yes. So we were very unprotected before, so,
Before that, there was zero.
pretty much.
We're getting
There
there.
was a lot of liability, but it has been since corrected, so.
That's excellent. That's good. That's pretty good, Michelle, that $3,000. I know that in the past has been a nice cushion, and, you know, just that you're confident enough to do that, it's pretty impressive. That's great. And this whole layout here is fantastic, how you've got everything printed out here. It's just so easy to
It's,
follow.
yeah, I figured simple is easy. I mean, why complicate it more than it needs to be, so.
Right there. It's great job. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Nope.
I'll be here.
Okay, thank you. Everyone ready to move right on? Do we get to go to the town clerk tax collector now? Sure. Oh, great. Let's head on over to the town clerk tax collector. Ms. Peru.
I think everybody should have one, although
So she's probably gonna get,
You do?
I do.
No, I remember getting one of those.
get it from the mail from Paul.
I have put together a small presentation that covers all of the budget lines that my office handles, in addition to a new position. I'm gonna give you a hard copy of it to follow along.
thank you.
And I apologize in advance, we worked diligently to try to get that table as level as possible and finally determined that the floor is just not straight. So if it looks a little off on the screen, it is the floor.
We could have thought ahead and put the ceiling out of plumb when it was rebuilt, but,
We
you
should
know.
have, because I went through my presentation and took all my lines out today because I was concerned that they were going to look crooked. So, the first one is the basic office essentials, the town clerk, tax collector office. You can see the department head salary is not changing from last year. That's staying the same at $34,000. The non-supervisor, which is my deputy account, is increasing from $13,000 to $17,160. And we're going to talk quite a bit about this line and why I feel the need for the increase. The Social Security and Medicaid is increased based on the two salaries above. Supply line, I was able to drop a few $100s. Employee training is staying the same. We are governed by training through the Secretary of State's office and through motor vehicles that we have to attend yearly. Dues and memberships also staying the same. We are members of several different organizations within the county and within the state. Lien costs, I'm optimistic dropping that just a couple $100s. That's one of the lines that you really need to be careful with, and it's hard to guess, but where we're heading right now for our 9, 10, and 10, 11 liens, I think that we're safe dropping that a little bit. Tax bills, not dropping at all. That's based on postage. That number was just enough to get us through last year, and we are hopeful that the cost of postage does not go up, because that would affect that line. Mileage and tolls is about the same. I do pay mileage and tolls for my assistant anywhere she needs to go. I do not take mileage and tolls generally for everyday errands or things pertaining to the job unless it's really far away training. And miscellaneous account, that account this year paid for the renewal of the post office box and just odds and ends like that. So there is an increase of about $4,000 in this budget line, and it is based solely on the deputy hours. As you can see to the right, gives you a breakdown of what that's based on. I'm currently basing it on 48 weeks times 25 hours. That would make the assistant here all of the hours that the town hall is open, with the exception of the weeks that Saturdays fall. She either works Thursday or Saturday, never both, so she would never go over 25, and that's at $13 an hour. I then took 4 additional weeks and multiplied it times 30, because like Ken, optimistic of vacation time that I'm entitled to, she would need to work additional hours to cover the reports for those weeks. So that's where the increase is. The next page gives you a little bit of an idea of where we're at as far as collections and also tax commitments, to give you an idea of how much the office has picked up as far as how busy it is and the pace that we run in there. The tax commitment, you can see the increase from 2007 to 2010. That amount of taxes is what is committed to the tax collector to go out and collect. So a combination of real estate and personal property taxes. And the next chart just gives you an idea of the state agencies' excise and agent fees that are collected on behalf of the town. This is everything from motor vehicles to inland fisheries to the animal welfare to marriage, death certificates, that types of things, all the excise and a portion of the agent fee. The 1011 is somewhat estimated, but I will tell you that what we did was we took each individual line and figured what we had collected to date, 8 months in through March, and then we came up with that other 4 months and estimated it. That number is going to rise. The state is in the process of passing some legislation that's going to increase agent fees for the town. Currently, they're about $3 and $4, and they're going to be going up to $5 and $7 on each transaction. So that number is going to increase as well for the 11-12 year.
And just to be clear, in case anyone is remembering years past, now that we have an appointed town clerk, those agent fees are revenue for the town, not for the individual.
Right. This information is just a comparison with other towns to kind of give you an idea of where we're at. Lebanon and Chapley both are open approximately the same amount of hours. Lebanon is open
closer to 30 hours, and they do have 2 deputies, but only 1 deputy town clerk tax collector. As you know, Chapley just had their annual town meeting, so these figures are accurate. With the approval of the increased budget, the deputy's salary would go to $17,160. Shapley, that has the same office hours as we have, their deputy is at $21,560, and then you can see Lebanon at $32,364. So this just gives you an idea that even with the increase in her salary, where we stand in regards to other towns.
I think the other important thing here is the reason that we need to have the deputy town clerk is for Jennifer to actually get to use her leave. For the last 2 years, she's passed her leave back into us and not used anything, so this will allow her to actually use some of her vacation time.
Deputy clerk's working out, she's pretty good.
Wonderful.
She's all trained now and finished the state training and everything.
Everything's falling into place.
She's a delight.
She is. Register of voters, this is a separate position in addition to the town clerk tax collector position. This position is responsible for maintaining your voter list and meeting all of the requirements through the Secretary of State's office. Although the town clerk oversees the elections, the registrar is required to maintain it. Currently, we have 2,036 registered voters in the town of Acton. And this line has not changed. I've gone back just through 2008 on here. But it actually hasn't changed since 2006. I believe the first year that I started working for the town of Acton, there was an increase, and there is not an increase, or has not been since then. This is sufficient. I have entered a small hyperlink here just to give you an idea of what this position entails as far as the state. They have recently gone to a centralized voter system. It's called CVR. All of our voter data is maintained through the state's website now. We still have the manual card catalogs, but everything that we do, they monitor. Every time we have an election, every time we have a change, all of our information has to go into the site. You can see by looking at the left, all the different things that they have as far as activities, maintaining the voter registration, putting in our elections, locations. We have to track every absentee ballot through here. Every one of the election results are put through here. Every time someone submits a petition, whether it's for a casino or whether it's for a local petition, they all have to be tracked through here. All of the cards have been scanned into the system so that when you sign a petition and I go in and I tell the system that John Doe signed this petition, we have to tell it what row you signed, what page you signed, and your signature actually pops up so that I'm able to verify that you in fact signed the petition. There is a lot to this position. The state has really, they've worked very hard to prevent voter fraud, and they've come a long ways. This is a really good site, but I want to make sure that that you see what's involved in it.
Where do they get the signature images?
From the actual voter registration cards.
Oh, interesting.
We scan those in, yep. What happened when they first got CVR and got all of the towns in place, they started with up northern Maine, and they worked their way down. They sent someone from the Secretary of State's office, and they scanned all of the cards. We got them into the system, and now going forward, in an effort to keep up with it, each time someone registers to vote in Acton, we're actually going through and scanning the image, uploading it into the system, and going from there.
So the cards are here, and they came up the first time and did them all?
Did it as in one big batch, and now we just keep up with it.
Nice.
So when you get a new one, you scan it?
Yes, yeah.
That's incredible.
And it's great because, and you'll always see me on election day, I've been trying to be in the hall more, you'll see me with my laptop set up. With people that register to vote for the first time on election day, because it's such a universal system, I'm able to tell if, he or she has already registered somewhere else, or, even if they possibly, I had an individual at a recent election, voted absentee in another town, and then came here for that same election to register to vote. And because of the system, I was able to catch it. So, there is all kinds of stuff in this site, and I won't spend a whole lot of time on it, but if you look at some of the different public reports, it's a very user-friendly program. It does everything from alphabetical voting lists to breaking it down by party. We can do mailing labels. Everything is governed by the state, though. They have very strict statutes about who's allowed to have it and how much it costs, so it's not just a free-for-all. There are a lot of statutes behind it, but it's very user-friendly. we can go in and tell at any election and pull how many people voted. We can do it by party, so there's a lot to this site. And then we can also do inquiries, which is nice, statewide, rather than just in the municipality. So we're able to help out surrounding clerks and try to keep the information as accurate as possible.
Thank you for presenting that. That's pretty slick.
You're welcome.
We need a little excitement in the budgeting process here. That was good.
Well, we're gonna get there.
That wasn't it, huh?
That wasn't it.
Okay. Thank you for the warning.
Okay, the next line that I'm responsible for is the elections line. This line covers one November election, one June election. I do budget for 2 school elections and 1 special election if necessary. And when we say election, keep in mind that includes the town meeting, the actual budget hearings, in addition to the school budget hearing prior to. This line has generally always been about $6,500, and although you're seeing an increase, you're really not. What's happened in the past is prior boards and prior treasurers have had different opinions about how this money should be split up in the beginning of the year. And auditing has also given us different opinions. So what we've generally done in the past, from 2007 to 2010, is we've put $3,000 in salary and $3,500 in miscellaneous. And as the elections come, we pay, obviously, all of my clerks out of the salary. Miscellaneous could be things like the postings, it could be paper for the ballots. I do feed the election clerks, that comes out of there. So as you can imagine, the miscellaneous never got spent down that amount. The salary line always got overdrawn. So what we've done this year with Michelle's recommendation and the auditor is made a better fiscal decision, a financial decision, and we've moved a majority of the money to salary where it really belongs. Because in the past, the FICA lines have actually been overdrawn because we always ended up spending more out of salary than we did miscellaneous. So as you can see, this increase is based solely on moving some of the money from miscellaneous to the salary. Therefore, it increases the amount of taxes that need to be paid out. And another tidbit of information for you, and Ted sat in on our last one, we actually do have required training for all of our election clerks. Every year, the Secretary of State trains the clerks and the registrars, and it's our responsibility to come back and present a class to the clerks. So once a year, that comes out of this line as well. We pull them all together, and we do a training.
And you paid them a stipend for attending the training?
I paid them an hourly rate.
An hourly rate.
Yeah.
What does it cost for an election? How much is, if you just have
It depends on which election.
like an unexpected election, say someone petitions and it becomes an election, what is that?
Depending on the question, between probably $1,000, $1,500.
Do you budget for those, something unexpected? Do you-
No, I budget for November, a June, 2 April, and 1 special.
So how do you handle that?
Well, we're either going to overdraw the account, hope the school budget passes the first time, or use that 1 special.
And we used that 1 special this year, right?
Correct.
When we had to redo the
Correct, but this-
voting on the borrowing the money.
Well, but that's not really an election, I mean, it is an election, but it's an open town meeting, and an open town meeting, the most that it's gonna cost, other than posting, is me paying the 2 election clerks that check people in, and at $8 an hour, those are minimal.
Oh, okay.
It's when you have to open the polls up.
That's what I'm talking about.
Right, so.
But there was the recall, though, so that certainly
Yes.
could be considered a special.
Right, but
That was last year's fiscal
right.
year.
Right.
The school budget also passed the first
So
time.
you don't
that
put a
kind of
cushion
works
in,
itself out.
you just hope that it doesn't happen?
That's
That
right.
one special.
I
You got the cushion.
guess I misremembered that. I seem to recall that there was 2 last year as well, but
Well, we do have
I'll
one, I do
certainly
have
go
one
with-
special in there. There's probably $1,000 to $1,500 cushion in there in case that petition comes before us or something else. So. The bottom is just a little bit of voter history to give you some education on how many voters participated in the last few elections. You can see the November 2010, the recall election, our last annual, and then the last school. So. Any questions so far?
you're talking about your whole presentation or just that last part?
Do you have any questions to date, Mr. Point?
Yes, indeed, I do.
Would you like to stop before we talk about the office?
It might be good to keep it from sort of disappearing on me,
Okay.
and if we kind of catch up. Let's see here.
Can I comment? This is a very professional and lucid explanation. Unbelievable.
Elucidating, perhaps?
Can you see it on the camera? Yeah. Good.
Okay, this goes to the non-supervisor line.
Okay?
The rationale is, certainly looks reasonable to me for the increase in the budget on that line. My question has to do with the existing, the current year budget of 13,000. What of what is explained for next year's proposal is not happening this year?
Do you want to?
Nope, go ahead. The Board of Selectmen made a decision that we were to overdraw that line, and they can tell you a little bit more about why they decided to do that.
Okay, we did. We are overdrawing that line, but because the warrant article is for all of municipal government, general government entirely, we are allowed to shift money as we see fit, and because last year's budget approved at town meeting called for a full-time treasurer, for instance, we had a $10,000 surplus from that section. We also had a change in the number of hours that we were paying for assessing, a rather dramatic one, also comes under that same umbrella. So we had plenty of money to redistribute to other positions for salary in the town. We very strongly felt that a deputy town clerk being fully trained, really solid, ready to go, was important for the town, for it to continue to maintain itself and to run smoothly. And so April, who is our deputy town clerk, tax collector, and deputy treasurer, she has been working those 25 hours a week. It's part of why we actually do think that Jennifer will, for the first time in 5 years, take a vacation. I have high hopes it will be this spring, but you never can tell. Or sometime coming up soon, because we finally have a deputy treasurer that has been here. It's actually a year. As of April 1st, she'll have been here. So that money has been being spent, Paul. We have been acting as if we had budgeted it that way for the last few months.
She became certified in October, and the following state training in October, and that's going to be probably up.
So on paper, we are increasing a certain percentage, but in actuality, we're essentially maintaining the current status quo, but being somewhat more accurate in how it's represented on the books.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on, I got two more, so you can count them down if you want. On the tax bills line, you were talking, mentioned the hope that things would not increase postage-wise. Does that go through the postage meter, or do you use stamps for that?
Neither, actually. We use a company called High Grade that we outsource our tax bills to, and we actually get a discounted amount. So last year, we paid about 17 cents per mailing. They do make every effort to combine property. We have a lot of property owners that own more than one property, so we're paying the outsourcing company to do that. So that $2,400 is based on them outsourcing it, and it also includes them giving us a PDF file of all the tax bills, because we don't create it in-house. It's not something that we have electronically, so that's figured in there as well.
And is that the one that goes online?
Yes, it is.
Because that's quite handy as well. Thank you. And the last question has to do with the comparison of the deputy town clerk's salary. We know that in our town, the clerk is part-time. Do you know if that is the case with the other towns? And essentially, have any idea what the breakdown of that is? Oh, gee, in Lebanon, it's full-time, or higher salary, or any?
Shapley is open the exact same hours as the town of Acton. Michelle, being the deputy over there, can probably very quickly tell me what the deputy's hourly rate over there is.
$17.47, I think.
$17.47 hourly, same amount of 25 hours.
And how many years has she been there?
I believe this is her second or third year.
Right, because I was Joanne's assistant, left there in 2006 to come to Acton, and she went through one other deputy before the one that she has now, so she's only been in the position a couple of years.
So we're getting a deal, and we may well be seeing a revisit of this at some point.
Yes.
As a looking down the road kind of a thing. Okay.
Yes, I actually did not want to show my assistant the slide that I had put together with those figures on.
Does she have cable?
Does it include?
Not in Acton.
Does the figure that we saw for Shapley, let's just use Shapley.
That's just hourly, flat hourly rate,
So
no
that she
benefits.
does, no, hold on. Does she get benefits through Shapley?
Yes.
She's eligible for them. Does she also, does she hold another title that's there? That's in, no. Okay, ours does by holding the deputy treasurer position as well.
But that stipend is not included in that.
I understand that. So she is getting a little bit more for the same number of hours.
Correct. We,
Right.
as deputy treasurers, as Michelle said, April and I both get 4 hours a month.
It's not a lot, I understand this.
And here we're referring to Shapley or Acton?
Chaplain, oh, I'm sorry, Acton, we get 4 hours a month.
Right, but are you rationalizing this difference or making
I'm
it a
saying
little
it's
bit more,
small-
a
it's
little
very-
worse than it is?
No, it's less egregious than it could otherwise be.
Meaning there's an additional hat being worn in Shapley?
There's an additional hat being worn here,
So it
but
is
more
somewhat.
money with that hat. Very, very little more money.
Right, but is that reflected in this line or is it reflected elsewhere?
No, but
That's
the two
represented
straight-up
in
positions
Michelle's
are
line as
reflected
her
here.
deputy.
Okay,
That's a totally
thank you.
different conversation.
Okay, thank you.
Are you all set, Paul?
And that's it, yes. We've counted down to 0.
Any other questions before
Thank
we
you.
move on to a completely different position?
Just so you know, Jennifer, you can find that position on page
None?
1.
Just professional and absolutely lucid.
The next position that we're gonna talk about is an office manager position. This is something that the Board of Selectmen oversee. I do not, but I do hold the position and ask the selectmen if they would allow me to describe it and explain it from my own point of view. If you look on page 1, you will find from Michelle's line, you'll find on Michelle's copy, this line. And before we get too far into it,
It's called department head.
I want to make sure that you understand that even though you're seeing a 0 and then you're seeing a figure on there, a portion of this was in the budget this year, and we're gonna go into where that came from and what the increase is. So this is not a brand-new position, it's just a combination of a few positions together. Several months ago, this is something that numerous boards have talked about over the years, as far as putting an office manager position together. This particular board were the first to follow through and make it happen. This is the actual office manager job description that the Board of Selectmen approved and moved forward. I'm not going to read it to you, but I just want to touch on a couple of them quickly. Maintaining the personnel files. This is something in the past when you had a full-time treasurer that they generally did. So this is something that the office manager does as well. Oversees employee time off, the contact for the weekly timesheets, and ensuring that the town hall staff stay within their budget. This simply means that all of the employees within the town hall bring the timesheets to me. I help keep an eye on the budgets and work with Michelle on that. Overseeing the ordering of the supplies. Several months ago, the board put a budget freeze in place, so this is one of the items that they asked me to oversee. First point of contact for the town hall staff with questions and concerns. Personnel issues are handled by the office manager with input from the Board of Selectmen only if necessary. It also gives the authority for verbal warnings if necessary within the personnel. Reports to the Board of Selectmen on how the town hall is meeting or is running. I meet with the Board of Selectmen every Tuesday at 2 o'clock, and we kind of sit down and go over the week's subjects and what's going on, and they give me guidance from there on how they want everything handled. Maintain and help the staff with the use of technology related to office work. Keeping record of all of the alarm codes. This covers the town hall, the cable room, and the gym. As you know, they recently opened up the gym to the entire town of Acton, so that has been a very busy bit lately. Coordinating the drug testing program. So currently I oversee the drug testing program. We have gotten back on track to make sure that all of our employees that need to be per DOT are enrolled in it. I am the only one that has the information from, who gets tested to results that come in. We have a very thorough drug testing program in place that I follow with the guidance of the attorney if necessary. And I also ensure that all of our independent contractors that need to have drug testing policies on file at the town. Negotiate and implement all of the contracts, the phone, copier, alarm system, computer software, maintain the town's website, responsible for the upkeep of the various drives, daily backup that we have within the town, liaison for the IT support, which is the outside contractor that we have, fully trainable in TRIO, responsible for maintenance and overseeing job performance and such. So this is the job description that the Board of Selectmen presented to me with the new position. Any questions on the job description?
So is there really anything that they do? Sorry. Couldn't resist. It's somewhat boggling to imagine that somebody does this.
Actually, I credit this Board of Selectmen for taking the time to put this in. This has been a need for years. I mean, I understand where, yeah, just to get this put together and put it in place is pretty impressive.
Well, and just so that, to relieve Paul of his concerns that we are wasting his time, it also is important to have somebody as a point of contact with the staff who is actually here at all of the hours that the town hall is open, is so much more sensible. The staff have a consistent presence, and also, this board tends to be fairly volatile as far as who's sitting on it. And so there's no constancy for the staff. So if we all get recalled next month, the staff still has the same person that they're answering to directly. The town is still running as smoothly as it can be by taking that piece out of the puzzle. And the drug testing is also, that's huge. Again, the drug testing used to be run by this board. It's a volatile board. You never know who's going to stay on it for more than 6 months. You don't want to have your drug testing information going through elected officials that may leave disgruntled.
The personnel files too, because up until this year, any one of the selectmen could go in and get into personnel files. Now that Jennifer's in charge of the personnel files, we have to have a reason, and all three of us have to be involved for her to bring us a personnel file. So not only the drug testing, but the confidentiality of their actual personnel files is no longer in the hands of the selectmen.
And you did it in a way where, yeah, it's not a town manager, but it's a quasi, you know what I mean? It's kind of like you're not paying $50,000, $70,000, but you're getting a lot of similar.
We were very careful. The town made it very clear 2 years running that they did not want a town manager. This position has no authority to execute the will of the people, or to discover the will of the people, or to in any way bill for things, or it's a management of this building only, not the town, so that
busy stuff.
It's busy stuff that this board really is not, as far as consistency is concerned, it's better served being held by one person.
And this a lot of times is decisions that Jennifer has to make and may not be able to get a hold of a board member, so we've given her the authority to make these decisions, where there are the main decisions, she still comes to us on Tuesday, or will call us by phone and get the opinion of two of us before she goes through with it.
Who wrote the job description? Did you fit it to the town, or did you guys put that together yourself this year?
Jennifer, well, a lot of it was already in existence, as Jennifer I think is going to talk about in a minute. I don't want to step over that, but so some of it was already in existence for an existing position. The rest of it, Jennifer pulled some things from various towns. We worked together, talked about what did we want the position to entail, and then the three of us, with a lot of input from Jennifer, put something together, drafted it, sent it back and forth a couple of times, and finally had a finished document.
Just things get done now with this, you know what I mean? Things that normally, you know, you guys can think out ahead. You're busy, you know, and it's just all the little day-to-day things. It's huge. I think it's a great idea that you put that in.
Well, just the one thing, we put a freeze on in July, right? We put a freeze on all discretionary spending. And what was happening before is each department was going out and buying office supplies, so we weren't even buying in a group, you know? So now Jennifer, they come to her and tell her what they need for office supplies, and she's buying in bulk rather than, you know, one office buying something at Staples and another one buying someplace else. So even that is just saving money, so.
That's great.
I'm surprised it doesn't say at the bottom, all other duties assigned.
No.
Or all hail.
And as they talked about, because they mentioned this, and because they talked about how important the drug testing was in the personnel files, so that there's no concern to anybody watching this or with the new position, there isn't anybody else that has a key to the filing cabinet those files are in. My deputy doesn't have a copy, the selectmen don't have a copy, so if something happens, you'll be finding a locksmith, because there are no other keys to that, so nobody has access to that
Now,
information.
those laws and rules are guided by, there must be something beyond
Privacy
that.
Act. The Privacy Act.
Privacy, yeah.
But what I'm saying is, even if I'm on vacation, no one can access those files.
And the drug testing comes under the federal government also, because it's all for the what's the license, the driver's license?
The CDL.
CDL.
Yeah, the CDL laws as far as the privacy of drug testing. And we don't need to know who's going and getting tested and what the results are until it becomes an issue that we need to deal with. So it's not information that should be given to this board or any new board that comes in.
That's good. Great job, all of you. That's fantastic.
One of the things that actually is not mentioned in the job description, we'll hope to talk about, is when the cable channel became up and running, the board decided that they would train one person with the town to maintain all of the town-related slides, and then the cable committee and the employee that they chose would handle all of the nonprofit and all of the other slides that they have going on. So I was trained as part of the IT position at the time it was called to learn the cable channel or learn how to basically upload slides. So these are just some examples. Hopefully you take a glance at that channel here and there and see some of the slides that I create. They're done in a PowerPoint form and then converted to a JPEG and uploaded to the channel. So we try to keep them fresh and moving with the help of Mike Corey, who also puts a good majority of them on that don't pertain to the town. But if they're town related, they're coming from me, unless there's something wrong with it. Just kidding. Town of Acton's website, just quick information, hopefully you've all viewed it and you're familiar with it. I'm really proud of the website. I think that we've worked hard to put a lot of information on there. We get a lot of comments from outside and, you know, people from real estate to assessors that are able to use our website and find it very friendly. So this is just an example of some of the things that we put on there. This is a link to the Acton main website and also some information that was taken off of the amount of hits or page requests that the website is actually getting. So you can see per month over the last few months and then years. Now just keep in mind for anybody that's very, very computer savvy that these are the number of all page requests, including any uniques or also if a search engine, if you open one coming from a search engine. So that's all of them together, but I mean, that's a huge increase, and like I said, there's a lot of stuff on the website. Have you all seen the website? Shall I skip over giving you a tutorial of
I have a
it?
question before you.
Well, not everybody at home has necessarily seen it, and maybe you'll get your hit rate up if you give everybody a tour.
With the reeval and all of the tax, you know, the new taxes and everything else being online, is that going to be on our website, or are you just going to have a link that's going to go to the O'Donnell's?
We're going to have both.
Okay.
Currently on the home page, and this is in here, I can't make the screen much larger because it's going to cut out from the screen. But currently, right now, we have under useful links, some of the information, the real estate information online right now. This is taken from the Harris computer. It updates every night at midnight. So you can type anyone's name in, and it's going to give you a list of all the different properties.
Jennifer, can you drag the lower right corner?
Yes.
And make it bigger? Yeah.
That.
Just position it to upper left and drag lower right, should do it, I think.
So this information here, it says last updated 1/28. There are 2 dates on these websites. It's important to know that this date at the top is based on just the assessing records. Okay, every month the assessing office gets updated deeds from the York County Registry, and we upload them usually every 3 months because based on the April 1st date, we don't update them that often. But down bottom, you can see the tax detail as of 3/14.
Oh, I haven't seen it since they put the pictures on there, that's nice.
This is
That's
just
the map,
a Google
pictures,
map.
yeah.
I'll show you the actual pictures in a sec. But this information that you see here,
I didn't even see that, I mean, I had seen it before, even
All the way down?
the map. It's nice.
this is everything that the Trio assessing stores in it. Your basic map lot, book and page, count number, the location, the mailing address, land, building value, if there's an exemption on there. So it's saving a lot of phone calls coming in. At the bottom, because this updates every night, it also gives you up-to-date tax information. So because, you know, the town hall isn't open until evenings on Thursdays or isn't open on Mondays, although Michelle and I are generally here, this gives people that are doing closings or need tax information for any reason, the ability to go on and look right then and there. So it updates every night.
Do all items have the same update date, or is it only when they legitimately are individually updated?
No, they're all gonna have the exact same date, every property that, if we pulled up 5, they would all say last updated 1/28, because that's when the real estate master was last updated.
So that's the refresh date essentially for the whole.
Correct. And then the taxes, is set up as a scheduled task on my desktop. So Ted, to answer your question, we're probably, and this is looking forward, I mean, we need to make a decision when we see what exactly John O'Donnell's has. We'll probably end up letting this contract expire with Harris and replacing it with O'Donnell's, because that's where a mass of the assessing information will come from.
Okay,
Because
so,
we can-
and the additional information that'll be on there when O'Donnell is done is the actual property card with a picture of the land and everything else will be added to what information that's on there now.
Well, O'Donnell's is gonna have a whole brand-new site.
Right.
So have you,
Yeah, I have, I just.
yeah, O'Donnell's, if you go to Shapley.net, Shapley has O'Donnell's on there, and you can kind of walk through
So
that.
there'll be a lot.
It's gonna be a completely different link, right?
And that'll also save a lot of people from having to call or come in and get copies of things because they could just go online and do it themselves.
And for the most part, I mean, most of our public records are online. There shouldn't be a lot of things that you can't find on this website. One of the other things, the Town of Acton Maps Online, this is something that Code Enforcement Office really likes and appreciates. So something that we recently did was, we took all of our JPEG files that we had from the old Brightside program, and we uploaded them to Maps Online. This is a service that I'm sure the selectmen will talk about when they get to one of the computer lines. We pay $4,000 a year for them to maintain this site. We send them all of our updated maps, similar to cartographics. But something that we just did was put all the houses on here. So in the past, it was just, I gotta pick on somebody because I'm not gonna be able to find what I'm doing. In the past, it was just maps, but we can type just a few letters in, and you can get all of the information on the property. You can actually,
Has he paid his taxes yet?
he has paid his taxes.
Jim, you realize that she's, you're right there, right?
So you can get your.
You ladies and rights.
But this is anyways, this is the maps online. You can click on the map layers and look at a lot of different options that you have. So for, assessing and code enforcement, I mean, this is a really, really neat site, but we won't waste your time on that. So anyways,
Now, that is a third-party site. The other one that we just saw is a third-party site as well,
Correct.
right? But that's going to potentially transition to a new company.
yes,
All right, thank you.
keep it away.
All very nice stuff. I mean, if you compare this, I mean, this has been only the last 2-3 years, I would think. You compare this to 5 years ago, we're, really transitioning to something resembling the electronic age.
Yes, we really, I mean, this website has a lot of information
And
from,
actonmaine.org, what, 2 years, 3 years?
yep. So we are proud of this website, aren't we?
Yes, indeed, Jen.
All right.
And you should be.
Thank you. Okay, so that's that. Before we get into the salary, just real quickly, this is something that I pulled off MMA as far as 2010, what they call a manager of information systems, somebody that administers the operating elements of the computer system. So this is, the website that slides all of the computer hardware in-house that I maintain and the backups. So taking out of the drug testing, the personnel files and those issues, you can see there are only a couple of towns that are somewhat comparable. You can see Alfred that has a population of 2847, it's a yearly salary stipend of $8,500. That Acton line that you can see there, the 3640, is what the position was stipend at prior to the selectmen turning it into a office manager and putting all of the personnel issues in it. And then a Gunklet I found interesting at 10 hours a week, $11,596. So that just gives you some comparisons. So this is the last slide. This shows you that in 2008 and 2009, the position was called an IT support, and that's exactly what it was. It was all of the internal computer work. It was $3,640. In late 2010, when the selectmen changed the position to office manager, they increased the position by $35 a week and brought the stipend to $5,460. The proposed, and this is proposed by the Board of Selectmen, is the $8,060. If you break it down to 52 weeks, it's $155 a week. On the average, it is very easy to say that I spend 10 to 15 hours doing everything on that office manager job description, which would make the hourly rate somewhere between $10.33 and $15.50 an hour.
And most of this work is done nights, weekends, days that the town hall isn't open is when she does a lot of this stuff. But then, of course, she also fits it in between her open hours too, so.
Any questions?
Pretty impressive, the whole PowerPoint
And this is,
information.
correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think you just touched upon the first line of the municipal management, and then we kind of got sidetracked and you're going back there, correct?
Yes, you're gonna see where they took the money out. It was in a different line as an IT line. So
That is
line-
really my only question. Yep, thank you.
You're welcome.
Nothing on the presentation, that was excellent.
But you made it very easy, Jennifer, that was, yeah, very well broken down.
Thank you.
Can I just ask one thing before you leave, Jennifer? This is something that John Moore had asked probably a month or a month and a half ago at one of the school committee meetings, if you can just explain this, about the lien process.
Okay.
Right here, and I have in front of me 09, 10, and so far, I think up to 11. Can you just take this and explain, because John had made a statement, I told him I was gonna get that, you know, and that information, if you could just explain how the lien process works, the money that is still owed to the town, and how you collect it, and what's the deadline, or just so that
Yep.
people understand.
Taxes are generally committed in the months of August or September, depending on the Board of Selectmen and depending on where we're at with our audit process. Liens have to be filed on the property 8 months from the date that the taxes are committed. So depending on when in August or September taxes are committed, 8 months from that date, we have to file what we call 30-day notices, the beginning of the lien process. So generally sometime in May or June, anybody that has outstanding taxes for just that that year that was just committed gets a 30-day notice by registered mail. So they get 30 days, it's a notice in demand to pay their taxes in full, or a lien will be placed on the property. At the end of the 30-day process, the town has a 10-day window to research every single property on the York County Registry of Deeds, find anybody that has an interest in that property, whether it be a mortgage holder, whether it be the Internal Revenue Service, and we have to send additional registered mail to all of those people telling them what we intend to do. Once the liens are filed within that 10 days, the lien has to stay on the property for 18 months before the town can foreclose. Unfortunately, liens are generally filed in June, it's just the month that it happens, which makes 18 months later, usually December of every year, we start a foreclosure process. When 30 to 45 days before the foreclosure process begins, the treasurer sends a notice of impending foreclosure, notifies the property owner that you now need to pay this amount or the town will foreclose. We actually just went through that process not too long ago in December. At the end of that process, the Board of Selectmen, then the town owns the property. Generally, most of the boards that I have worked with give the property owner a right to redemption period, which is a 30-day period to say, okay, the town owns your property, but we're going to give you yet another 30 days, but at this point you need to pay all of the outstanding taxes. And if they do that within the 30 days, the Board of Selectmen will sign a quitclaim deed back over to the property owner. So that's in a nutshell the process that we go through in regards to filing liens.
So the numbers you see there for 2009, 2010, and the one on 2011 right now, that's a fluid number, that isn't the accurate, I mean, that's changes, were you still?
Well, I mean, these numbers certainly change every single day. This printout was as of February 15th, so I can tell you just being, you know, a month and a day later that these numbers have gone down quite a bit. The non-lien summary that's on here for 2010, that's the second half because after it runs on a fiscal year from July to June. The non-lien summary is your 10-11. That's how much the town is expecting to bring in the April of 2011 payment. So that's a little over $3 million, which would be exactly about half of the commitment. So that's an accurate number. We have just started to get mortgage company checks in this week, so we're starting to collect that. As far as the other numbers, we just foreclosed on the 2008 tax year. So those are pretty much all but paid. We've got 2 properties the board is dealing with, and 2009 taxes are still outstanding. So that's probably pretty accurate. But certainly, Mr. Driscoll, if you'd like new numbers, you're welcome to come into my
No,
office.
I just, John had mentioned in a meeting, I just
Yeah,
wanted to
I
clarify,
appreciate
that's all.
that. Those are pretty close.
Does anyone have any more questions for Ms. Ruth?
I'm just sort of wondering how much her hourly rate is for the responsibility assumed and the lost sleep for all of the above. I mean, that's
Very little.
semi-amazing. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I think that leaves us with simply this board, the assessment office, and the general government, municipal management in general, some of which, honestly, Jennifer mentioned that we would be discussing the computer lines with you. No, our IT support person, if you have questions regarding computer lines or professional services regarding computers, Trio, et cetera, would be the better person to answer those questions.
Actually, I think, Jennifer, I got one more that I think I missed going by. The business about the 8,060 that apparently came from somewhere, I'm not able to find where it came from.
On page 1, underneath 10205, General Government Municipal Management, salary and wages, we have department head. The previous year, the IT support position was listed under clerical.
At 3640.
Right.
So
that
it's
should-
moved and increased.
Right, and that should be
Okay.
0 this year?
Yes, it is.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Virginia, are you still good to go? Alrighty. So just, I guess, guys, want to start at page 1? Very top? We have clerical support, that is our secretary. That covers her hourly wage that she receives from us. It has decreased, and honestly, I do not know why. That looks like a 1-week decrease. Anyone know why?
That has to do with the,
Increase, I don't
I'm from 20, I've got 22,163 down to 21,762.
that's what I have.
Over budgeted last year? This is the current
Oh, so
year.
the 22,163 is the actual expense?
That's what was,
No,
we're
no,
budgeting this.
that's what was budgeted for this year.
Okay.
It's not a decrease of hours or an increase of pay, it's just getting it more in line with what it actually is. Lorraine works anywhere from 25 to 28 hours a week. And this is based on 27 hours a week at her current rate of pay, and the Board of Selectmen have said that they're not going to increase pay, so.
And then the elected officials, that's us, we each make $9,100 a year, which gives you the $27,300. Okay. And we also have had, because of the decrease in the correction of the hours for our secretary, a decrease in the FICA lines as well, for about $1,000 decrease total for the year there. Any questions?
The wages for clerical, I assume, have strictly to do with BOS-related tasks. And case in point, a couple days ago, Lorraine was our secretary for the school meeting.
She got a $50 stipend.
Right, and that would come out of the budget that either is or isn't for the Warrant and Finance Committee, correct?
Ethereal Warrant and Finance Committee budget, yes.
Yes, okay. So it's not part of this?
No.
Excellent.
Although I don't think I've ever seen Lorraine bill for a selectman's meeting as a secretary.
She bills as her hourly, as her normal job.
So, and certainly our
Nice
secretary.
economy.
Yes, during the day is doing secretarial work as well as, is the administrator for GA and general know-how of the town.
A sort of a side issue that's partially related to this particular item that we're discussing here, but overall more related to the document I'm looking at. It's obvious that the numbers that we have on the budget requests are inflated in many cases by 1 week. Is it possible for us to get a fresh copy after this meeting that has all these corrections, so we see 52 weeks?
I am sure.
Thank you.
Any other questions from page 1? Any comments from page 1?
Pretty straightforward.
Oh, I guess the health insurance line. It's continuing on page 1, 102, we're in employee benefits. Thankfully, our treasurer caught that we were severely under budgeting for workman's comp and for unemployment compensation, so those have been adjusted to reflect their should-be correct values, just to have better accounting of where our money is actually going. Health insurance line, we are in hopes that we are going to be able to leave that where we budgeted it for this past year. This board did switch over to a high deductible plan with the health insurance, which is seemingly more cost-effective. We also this year have, as of July 1st, all employees will be paying 15% of their health insurance costs. So that there is, we've been hearing for the last couple of years a suggestion that that
Nice
happen.
precedent that might spread.
Well, anybody with a family plan was already paying it, but all the singles weren't. They were getting 100%, so we're dropping them down where they're paying 15%. But we kept it where it was, in case any new employees, plus with the new plan, we went, it used to be fiscal year for the insurance, and then went to a calendar year. So we had to have some extra money to pay last October and then pay again in January. But our hope is that, and then we're not looking for an increase where everybody else is looking for an increase in insurance because everybody knows the insurance costs are going to go up. So we're not looking for any increase in insurance. We're going to keep it the same as it is and hope that we'll get a lot of new people, because that's been the trend both at the school and actually then where folks who, one spouse is losing their job, so then they're coming on to the insurance policy. So that's why we wanted to push it in there.
So single coverage was 100%, now it's
Yeah.
115?
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you. And what page are we actually looking at for the last 4 items or so? I got
page
lost.
one.
We're still on page 1.
Yes, we're underneath general government and municipal management.
Okay, and
So that first section, we've already discussed, those are the office
Yes.
manager.
All right,
We're in
that's
the
why I was
benefits
sort of
right now.
bypassing that, all right. Because we
Okay.
did not discuss the whole section, thank you.
No problem. Supplies, we're keeping steady. We're hoping to keep most things steady if we can. Heating fuel, it's going up. So that budget line has increased as an idea. We are looking for ways to try to buy cooperatively. The first thought that Ted had, which was really a great one, was purchasing through with the school, and that is not going to fly.
What I was looking for was just for the GA oil, if we could buy them, and what we're getting in town oil, because we get our town oil with the school, and it was what, $3.38?
This year it's 238, 238.9.
Yeah, this year we're paying $2.38 because the school tied in with Sanford and got it tied in, so even right now, we're paying $2.38 for the oil.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so I said, we're spending about $1,500 a year in general assistance if we get that 1,500 gallons tied in with the town, but they wouldn't go for it because their general assistance in Sanford gets their oil in a different place, right?
I mean, we're fortunate that we get in with the Sanford School District, but when it comes to the general assistance,
Because it's 100 gallons here, 50 gallons there, so.
it's huge. It's huge in Sanford compared to Acton, so it's tough to compare the two.
Yeah.
But
So we couldn't tie it in and get that, and I don't think anybody's going to tie us into one number for just 1,500 gallons or 2,000 gallons a year for general assistance. So that was one thought we had, but that one didn't work out.
Do you think there would be any merit perhaps in looking into maybe coming up with some type of a cooperative among households and maybe the town in general, as one entity for that kind of purpose, or would the individual deliveries kind of make it not worth the effort for anybody to say, hey, I'll take that?
That's really, it's pushing socialism a little bit
Hey, whatever works,
Yeah.
Is it legal? Can we do it?
Honestly, we haven't
Can we
looked
save
into
money?
that. It is, I actually did say to my fellow board members a while ago, gosh, I wish I could buy in at the same rate that the town is buying in at.
Yeah, the school is getting it.
Yeah, it would be fantastic.
But unless we have a huge repository where they could wheel their trucks up and go, and then we can take from it, I don't really see where it would be worth their time to still, because they'd still have umpteen households to go to, and what's the
Plus, their
point?
diesel costs are going up, so,
Right.
if they gotta go to 100 houses as opposed
Right.
to how many gallons do you hold at the school?
we have a 10,000 gallon.
Yeah, so they come in and drop 10,000 gallons at once.
So if we put in a $20,000 infrastructure, we could possibly save $1,000 a year.
It's possible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know about
Think of the
that.
long-term payoff, Paul.
Yeah.
The furnishings line, I can't remember having purchased furnishings, but it's there just in case, for some reason, all of our chairs disappear.
Aren't they gonna be doing that in a few months?
Well, not in our office. I'd just like to also take the opportunity to say thank you to Ted. Our office is furnished through his generosity of spare parts from his school. So our round table of Camelot is furnished through his school and certainly has helped make the office more functioning. The next set of lines is all handled by Jennifer. There doesn't seem to be any differences between last year, so if you have questions, I would encourage you to ask them of Ms. Rue. If not, we can move forward. Anyone? No?
Yep.
Okay. We have kept the building repair and maintenance line at the 25,000 budgeted again this year. It's an old building. We don't know what's going to come up. We've had certainly heating issues this year. We've had some wiring issues. You just don't know what's going to happen in a building that's this old. Did you want to speak a little bit about some of the building issues that...
Well, we don't really have any issues, I mean, as far as the siding and so forth, that has to be done?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, the siding still has to be corrected, scraped, I guess it's not siding, excuse me, scraped and painted. I think the flagpole falls into this. We're putting in a flagpole up in a couple months, and Hannah will get the old one back.
The wiring, we were having some issues this weekend with...
Well, there's issues with the wiring in the town hall here, but that's a very expensive approach. I mean, we're talking about just labeling the outlets, so, and on the switch fuse box, so that it's, you know, easier to distribute the load. But there are a number of projects that, you know, we could do, but we haven't, you know, set any money aside for
Do you
it.
have anything in here to address any of these issues coming up?
That's in that 25,000 for building maintenance, we'll just use that.
It'll all fall within
But there's no capital expenditure expected coming up?
Not this year, though.
The heater was funded last year, but the problem with the heater has really just been a draft problem. And as long as we keep the door off the enclosure, the heater seems to be functioning fine.
So is that, meaning that was a capital expenditure that's returning to general fund, or?
Yes.
Am I?
Right.
Okay. And how much was that?
Well, we had not...
Well, it was set for, what, $2,500 or?
Yeah, well, that's the price that we got to put the new one in. I don't-
That's what the heater was,
I don't know
yeah.
how much, they just did the 25,000, I don't think they said we're gonna have so much.
Yeah, they didn't break it up.
Was that actually a separate warrant article? Because I don't really
There
recall
was a
that one.
separate warrant article for things like the siding, the push bars, the new ramp, and some of those things have been dealt with, the floor being refinished. There were some town hall maintenance repairs, either last year's town meeting or the one prior, Paul. I am not remembering, I'm sorry. It's like $34,000 was appropriated.
Yeah, actually, the heater in the office too is gonna have to be replaced somewhere along the way.
The siding on that building out there.
Was for use for the roof.
No.
Thank you.
No.
What about the siding on the gym? Not just not gonna.
That is not been budgeted for whatsoever. We are not sure where that building is heading. We're not sure what's going to be heading forward. We're trying to find a way to make it support itself. So that is on the back burner right now.
Yeah.
And the siding, the new siding that's on there is vinyl or wood?
Mr. Poynt.
It looks like vinyl, so, sorry, guys.
No.
I know vinyl is final and wood is good, but...
Wood is good, and that is what is on our lovely historical town hall building, and...
And it's on a sort of an out-of-the-way place that you don't normally see, and...
We are hoping sincerely that the volunteers that have made it thought that they might be willing to come in and help with that will still find a way to do so this spring, perhaps.
But it's got a few years before it gets in as bad shape as the rest of it.
Well, and we have another fleet of volunteers waiting in the wings as well, so we're gonna get there.
Thank you.
Okay, the rest of the lines are pretty much stable. Ready? Okay. Elections is Jennifer. Moving on to page 4 in assessment. Please notice that there is a substantial decrease in this line. This is one of the places that this board is quite pleased with the savings that they're able to bring this year. You saw on Mr. Paul's line in CEO that he had a slight increase in his clerical hours. What we have done is when this treasurer position opened up and we reduced it down to a part-time position and hired Michelle, Michelle was working as Ken's secretary. She was the clerical hours presented for that position. We knew that we did not need a full-time assessing assistant in the town hall, especially during a revaluation year. So we offered the hours that were Michelle's down with Ken Paul to Linda, who is our assessing assistant. So she is splitting her time now, her work week, her 25 to 28 hour work week. Half of it is with Ken Paul, half of it is with our assessing department. And on that line that you see clerical, so we're on page 4 down at the bottom, 10213 and 50104, that's a substantial drop is because of cutting those hours back to really where they work for our town. 14 hours a week of assessing assistant work is meeting the needs as far as the assessing department, and it's opening up time for Linda to be down and working with Ken, which it's a nice pairing. The code enforcement office is where the properties start, and the assessing office is where they kind of are kept track of. Having one person in charge of both of those things is a nice streamlining. And it's also a substantial savings for the town. So that's about a $15,000 savings that we were able to realize just in reducing that one position, but without affecting her by letting her pick up those other hours in an existing position.
The other savings is $14,000 under the subcontractor services. The previous board had put in the extra money into that account to have the subcontractor oversee the reevaluation.
That's on the bottom, Ted?
Yeah. Subcontractor.
Like the third from the bottom, page 4.
Now, what is that? Explain that again. What is that difference? What is that?
They had increased the hours of the subcontractor to include have overseeing the reevaluation. And we felt we were paying $212,000 to a contractor to reevaluate the town. There was no need to hire another contractor to oversee them because, you know, the contract was binding and they were going to do the job that they were going to do. So we cut those hours off this year, and next year that'll just be for regular assessing, and we figured it's probably going to be more with the reevaluation as far as them coming in and looking for you know, some changes in their bills.
You discussed that with them, that difference there? Wow, that's great. That's great.
So the assessing department, if you turn the page, you'll see that the drop in there is from 120,833 down to 91,465. That's a substantial, very satisfying drop to see. That's a $30,000 change, almost 29,000, and it is made up from those two places, the one that Ted spoke of with the subcontractor and the clerical work. Any questions with assessing? We still have the revaluation loan being paid. It's a 5-year loan. We paid the $55,384 last year. We will do so again this year.
Very nice.
There is some money left from the loan because they had put in for $260,000 and the loan papers were all set up for that. But we've used some of that over the $212,000. We've used some of that for the legal expenses this year for getting the paperwork done for the loan and things like that. And we don't know what the final cost will be with hearings and all that kind of stuff. So we want to keep that extra in there and still go to the town for the same amount for the payment. We looked into paying that back because, you know, we had to get the $260,000 because that's what the loan had already been set up for. But we looked into paying that back, and it said it wouldn't have been any benefit to us because it was a 5-year loan. The interest rate was set. The quarterly payments or monthly payments were already set, and by us paying that back would not bring anything down until the end of the loan. It wouldn't be any benefit to us. So we left that in that account. We can't use it for anything but the reevaluation. And then at the end of next fiscal year, whatever's left in that account, and then we can put back into the town again. But we felt it was better to just keep it in.
That's cool.
Wouldn't that be essentially a prepayment down to zero in the last couple of months of the loan? Or would we not get anything back from that even?
Well, they said the way the loan was structured, and it was only a 2% loan, they said that we wouldn't be gaining anything by saying we gave them $38,000 back. We wouldn't gain anything on the loan. We would still have to make the same monthly payments all the way through.
Sounds like they're trying to avoid a little ciphering. but, okay, thanks.
Picking up where we left off, finished off with assessment, on to page 5.
To page 5.
We are going down towards the bottom. We have health and welfare, and we have the health. Oh, sure, go ahead, Ted, absolutely.
Before, in the health and welfare and all that, if you look at last year's CEO, Inspector General Government, it was $623,871. This year it's $595,828.
So there's $28,000.
Yeah.
Okay, so, and that mostly is out of the treasurer's office and the assessing department. That's where that's coming from. And, okay, so that's a good place. We have our health officers, always $100, so that stays the same. Did you want to touch on general assistant, as the increase in general assistant?
Yeah, under miscellaneous items 509-05, for the general assistance, this year was $15,000, but because of the economy, I guess, we're bringing that up to $25,000.
Makes sense,
It's money that we can't refuse paying.
Yeah, definitely makes sense.
Yeah, it's one of the items that we can go over budget every year, and we actually have to. So we've seen a lot of new faces and a lot more requests than before, so we decided to up it by $10,000 in hopes that next year we won't go over budget again.
And we have gone over budget on that general assistance line for the past 2 years. We do have workfare in place. We are trying to expand that out further to try to encourage responsible use of the general assistance program. But it is a serious drain on the tax revenues. And as Ted mentioned earlier about the fuel, it was a great idea that he had about trying to consolidate that. We can still continue to pursue different ways to try to find somebody maybe who would contract with us for general assistance help. But at 100 gallons each time that somebody comes in for emergency fuel assistance, at the moment I think we're paying $3.89 a gallon or something along those lines. That uses up that $25,000 very, very quickly. And the line has been pretty constant coming in for general assistance.
Well, Larissa's been great at getting people to do the work fair. You may have seen a lot of people up at the dump the past 6 months that aren't employees, but they're up there working, and that's what they are. They're working off their general assistance, so they work up at the
Working 10% of it.
10% of it.
They have to work a number of hours equal to 1/10 the dollars they receive. So if they get that $389 for the fuel, they owe us 38.9 hours of time. So we're paying them, if you will, $10 an hour towards their general assistance money. It's how our bathrooms have become the bright shades that they are. And certainly any other projects that people can think of that need to be done in town that are all town related, we would be thrilled to hear about them. The school has been cooperative in having some people go in after hours and work with the custodial staff a couple of times and doing some desk cleaning and stuff like that. So we try to find ways that are respectful of the people. If they are a parent, we have worked with Trish at the school to have them come in as a volunteer and simply be doing volunteer work that you would expect to see a parent doing during the day, because general assistance is private. It is protected, and we don't want people being publicly shamed, if you will, or made to feel any, if they're having a rough time, we're here to get them help, get them back on their feet, but we also want to give them an opportunity to pay that back to the town.
Now, Larissa, did you put in a new formula to go by the town, or is this by the state, or who, you know what I mean?
I just made it up. The workfare is a state program. Okay, that's a state program.
Is that the guidelines you go by, I guess?
Yeah, and the guidelines for that are pretty strict, but as far as the $10 per hour payback thing, it seemed fair. Okay, we're breaking.
I need to speak to him.
Okay. So that is just, it seemed like, $10 an hour seemed like a reasonable rate of payback per hour for work done. So that's what we've been going with. Okay, so then moving on down, we're gonna skip, of course, fire department, public safety, we're gonna skip over public works. We'll be doing those all together next week. You already did the public works with the road commissioners for the most part. Transfer station will be next week. Comp plan has no budget request this year. If you'll notice, we're on page 13, 10701. They had a carried over budget of $4,883 last year. They have been using that budget to finish up their last round of proposed changes. There is no budget requested for the following year, no rollover, new appropriation. Yep. So county tax is looking like it is decreasing. Michelle, what's up with that?
The state valuation has turned back to decrease this year, thus the county tax decreased.
Hallelujah.
That means we're worth less in the state.
Well, and that's okay sometimes. We know
There's gotta
we're
be a
just as good
silver
as we were
lining
before.
somewhere.
We're just, so that's a nice savings right there. We'll take $13,000 anytime somebody wants to pass it
We're
over.
actually over budgeted on that this year because it was actually $120 more than what was budgeted for the 321. So there will also have to be a warrant article to ratify that.
Okay. Okay, so look for the $121 warrant article. Sounds like a plan. You guys heard from the donations last week as we're moving through. Oh yes, and you will be seeing on the warrant what was presented and requested last week will be on the warrant. So for all of the donations. So when you guys are making your recommendation, please do keep that in mind. There will be nothing that was requested that won't be going forward, and it will be up to the people and to you guys to make a recommendation and the people to decide how they wish to go on that.
As it should be. Good.
And I'm not really thinking there's a whole lot else in this budget that has to do with our board. We are putting...
The dams?
I was going to say, before we get to the dams, we are putting forward a capital reserve fire department warrant. Again, that is coming from us. It's not part of the fire department budget. I'm sure that Ed will want to touch on that a little bit next week as well. But it's another $50,000 towards a fire truck. We know it's coming, and we're trying to plan ahead.
And the two school warrants, you guys know about already, the $25,000 for the roof and the $25,000 for the communication system.
Michelle, I'm sorry, can you give me a number?
Dams?
Yep.
Right after donations. Make sure it's on page 15.
Yep.
10950.
Okay. We have two things here. We have, it's for $5,000. We have decided as a board not to enter into a formal agreement with the towns of Shapley and Sanford regarding the Emery Mills and the Square Pond dams. However, we do recognize that those dams are going to need repair coming up in the future, and we certainly do recognize our obligation as a town considering how much lakefront we have that is created by those dams. So this $5,000, we're asking the people to set up a capital reserve account to start saving money now towards future repairs of those dams. So that is what that $5,000 is for. We figure if it takes another 10 years or so, before they need a repair, we'll have $50,000 ready to go towards our share of that repair.
Great.
And last year, the dam costs were $5,500, so.
Last year, that $5,500 was a $2,000 donation to the Square Pond Dam for a reimbursement for
I
that.
think it was 3 articles, in
Yes.
fact.
The $500 is for the gatekeeper at Balch Lake. Is there a reason that we have not budgeted for that same position this year?
Oversight?
I think perhaps we might want to look at that oversight before we finish up the final warrant.
Okay, so that agreement then is not a factor this year.
It is not.
And we have $500 for dams, Balch Dam, and $2,000 for Square Pond Association for repair, so that wouldn't apply.
That was a
this year.
reimbursement, yep.
So we're just left with the $500.
And I think that we have now found an oversight regarding the 500. That is just simply for a person that we pay to go and lower and raise the level of the dam as is needed by removing boards, I believe is what he officially does. And so that 500 is just usually in there, and we simply have forgotten to include it again this year. But,
Okay, so that will be showing up.
do you guys have something you want to add to anything on this budget?
You just mentioned that it would only be $500. It's showing 5,000 that we're asking, so we're going to be asking for 5,500 again?
But in two separate warrant articles, one for capital reserve account and one for the Balch Dam maintenance.
Yeah, that
Oh, okay.
would certainly make sense.
Okay. But it still would be under this 50702?
Yeah, we'll keep it all there.
Okay.
And And that's for any of the dams in the town that could need it, I assume? It's not earmarked?
I was
The 5,000?
actually thinking that it would be earmarked. Those are the two dams that, we know our neighboring towns are building up capital reserve accounts to pay for future repairs. I think when we discussed it, it was as an earmark. I guess I don't really know very much about the other dams in the town. Do you know how Wilson Lake's dam is looking?
Well, it's not much of a dam, actually. It's
Okay.
just some boards, but it actually is gonna need some work because the water's going underneath the boards now.
Okay,
And that caused a little concern a couple of weeks ago, so.
What about Great East Lake, the dam at Great East Lake?
That's in New Hampshire.
New Hampshire controls all of that then?
Yeah, that's in New Hampshire, and it's a New Hampshire dam.
I'm just sort of thinking if we sort of tie ourselves down to just certain dams, we might have to have a town meeting to replace a couple of rotten boards on the side of obviously we wouldn't do that, we'd transfer it from somewhere else, because it wouldn't be much, but who knows?
I think that the difference may well be who owns the dam. So the Emery Mills Dam and the Square Pond Dam are owned by the town of Sanford. I'm assuming that since we do not hold the deed for the Wilson Lake Dam, that the Wilson Lake Association may well hold that deed. Is that correct?
I don't think there is a deed on it. The Wilson Lake Association does not,
Does not own that dam?
no.
I guess, Paul, I would want to look in to see who owned, the reason that the Square Pond Dam and the Emery Mills Dam came up was because they are actually owned by a town, and that town is Sanford. And they are wanting to find some security in the future that other towns will help to pay for capital repair costs on that dam.
Which ones have hit our radar screen in the past?
Emery Mills Dam and Square Pond Dam.
So we're basically covering anything that we know about historically that we've had to be concerned with.
But I think you raise a good point, and certainly, I think it also, the lake associations of Great East Lake and Wilson Lake, they have not come, or Horn Pond, have not come to us and said, we're concerned about our dam and would like to see financial support. When Square Pond Improvement Association came last year and said, we expended this much money, we're asking for reimbursement from these different towns, can you do that for us? It went forward onto the warrant and the people supported that. So I think that if the other bodies of water are concerned about maintenance of their dams, they would need to come forward and let us know that.
I think one of the big issues that happened with the Emery Mills Dam was during one of the storms. Quite a few people down on Loon Pond got flooded out 3, 4, 5 feet in their basement, the first floor. And the argument came in, they went over to see Mark Green. I went with a few of them actually. And the argument was in regards to the policy as to when they decide to open and close the dam. And they're saying that they didn't open it quick enough. That was the argument. And because they didn't open it with the amount of rainfall, a couple days on in, that it all backed up and flooded out the Loon Pond folks here in Acton, and it held it off enough as it went downstream. It was pretty, so the issue became the policy on the guy who opens and closes the dam, at what point, So that's what really brought it to a head. There was quite a few folks I know from Loon Pond that went over there and argued that point, and I guess nothing ever came of it, but it is pretty serious stuff. It's something to, like you said, to save $5,000 a year. That's a great idea, to try to get out ahead of it,
Well, actually, I think Shapley's putting up $10,000 a year.
Yeah, but you're talking in general, right, Larissa? You said the 5,000?
You put in 15,000?
5,000 a year for general maintenance and 10,000 a year for capital improvement.
And how many dams do you guys have?
So that's just for the Emery Mills.
That's the ones we're talking about.
Right. But $10,000 a year comparable to what we're suggesting of the $5,000 towards the capital improvement fund.
That's a great idea, I think.
Anything else?
Can't think of it.
Anything else, Tim?
Do we have a figure that shows the total for last year and the total for this year?
We have, what we have here at the bottom, when you see at the bottom and of the $6,901,717, that is this year's total budget including the school. The $2,110,385 is this year's municipal appropriation request, not including the school. And I think that Paul hopped on the website and looked at the proposed school budget, and what was the total for that, Paul?
No, I actually hopped on my spreadsheet
Oh, okay.
and then did a little saffron. What I have for this year, exclusive of the school, is, current budget, right, assuming my math is reasonable, is $1,888,457.
Where are the decreases there, Paul? Have written down.
That is subtracting out last year's school, this current year's school budget. What I'm saying is I'm netting out the 6,901, okay? And this year, adding in the current proposed school budget, which has not yet been ratified, of $4,971,076, I add that back in, and I end up with $7,081,811. So we have nets and grosses for both years. I'm seeing an 11% increase in the municipal budget this year.
And just so that everyone knows where that's coming from, it's going to be coming forward in the request, the majority of that increase is a request for a return of paving. And it is we discussed this a couple weeks ago, it is a very valid, we feel, a very needed request, that we cannot continue to ignore the quality of the roads and allow them to continue to deteriorate. Yes, it is an increase, we understand that. We've tried to reduce the budget in places where we could to help offset that, but that increase in needing to do some paving is real.
And those are separate warrant articles, that's a separate
Yes.
warrant article. But now, just for clarity on the town itself, what you people are going down as far as the whole management of the town hall, these offices, what is that number?
It's about 28,000.
It's slightly more than the current budget, just,
$28,000 less.
Right.
Coming in, and the separate warrant articles as far as the paving, that's gonna be up to the people. That really is.
And the 50,000 for the
The
fire
school,
truck.
oh, the fire truck.
Yeah.
And there's also an increase in donation requests, which is not to be, that's expected when the state and the county is no longer supporting the community service groups. They're going to start looking more heavily on the towns. And there were some modest increases in other departments, but I think that especially when the fire department and the transfer station come and present their budgets, those will be well justified as well.
The other thing with the charities was there were several new ones too. Not only were there a few that went up a little bit, but there was also several new ones that had needed been here before or were not on my warrant article.
So,
Well, I just think overall, just within this department, outside of the separate warrant articles, that the amount of streamlining that the three of you have done, you know what I mean, the focus, and how town hall's running and everything, and Jennifer and Michelle, it's unbelievable. It's where you're at now, I think, is where a lot of us wanted to get at some point, as selectmen. I just think you're doing an unbelievable job, all of you. And the way it's running now is the way that a lot of us had hoped that it would. You're doing a great job. These numbers are unbelievable in compared to the return, the services that the town is getting. It's just very organized, real good job, all of you.
Thank you.
any other questions for this board?
No, I would say that some of the increases that are reflected here too are kind of beyond your control. The heating fuel, obviously, the general assistance, which Bill alluded to, it's economy driven, and, I think you guys have done a great job at holding the line as far as, putting together a responsible budget.
You gentlemen want to add anything before we bring up the rec department?
Not really.
Okay. If you guys are ready, we're gonna bring on up the rec department. Woo, Ken Joy, come on down.
What page are we on, Larissa?
Rec department is... Hold on, Ken.
Page 13.
Thank you. Nope, that's the Conservation Committee. Just a minute.
It says rec conservation.
Right, that's because they used to be one committee and then they got split. Michelle, do you have a page for us for rec department by any chance?
15, dare I even suggest?
Oh, 16, page 16,
15 to 16.
just 16.
Actually, I have just 15 at the bottom of page 15. I must have a different copy than you
You
have.
must, because I've got tax overlay on the bottom 15.
I think we can compromise on page 15 and a half. What do you think?
I love it. Ken, what do you got for us this year?
Well, the rec budget has been reduced slightly again. I will say that my good friend and treasurer, John Scarpelli, has put most of this forward based on numbers he looked at from last year, and with the request, again, I believe the request went to him. I would assume from here that those numbers come down again. Maybe not, but...
He did that all on his own.
Well, good job, John. That could also reflect the fact that our numbers are decreasing. So that's probably where those came in.
There aren't as many kids that are signing up for it.
Correct. We also have, we've got, in fact, we just put together a letter to send to the town through some emails that we have and through hopefully Lorraine's article. And Mr. Driscoll, do you still write in the Observer, or is that?
No, not anymore.
You don't? Okay. Is that Mary Waterhouse now? Okay, I heard Mary, but, so we're going to try to get volunteerism back up, to try to let people know that our committee is, we're now without a vice president. We've been a year without a treasurer, but our treasurer is still doing the job of treasurer. And we need a secretary, and we could use as many coaches and people in those positions as we can get. So we're trying to bring some of that back. We'll be sending that out. You'll see it in the next month, trying to get people to our April 20th meeting and
You've already got a good forum for it.
get people back.
We can certainly put it on the cable channel if we want to send the information.
I would love to do that. That would be great. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Joy about how his budget has been derived, or?
The number is going in the right direction, so it looks great to me.
Not that we
Thank you very
would love
much.
to see an increase because of a doubling of children
Why
being
is that,
active.
Ken? Why is the number,
Why is it down?
yeah.
I think it's partially down because the financial number or the number of kids? The number of kids is down, I think because, and maybe Pete could speak to this too, I don't know, I think less people are just getting involved.
Well, there's a change in the population. We're seeing the same thing in the school. The kindergarten classes are going down, which is going to leapfrog through the school system. Stat 60 is estimating that their 1,200 students that they have in high school by 2013 will only be 850. Wow. So the population for students, where there's not a lot of new building and a lot of people moving into the state, and the population of kids is just dropping.
I'd like to also throw out there that there are some great programs right down the street. My daughter no longer plays soccer. She's into field hockey. SSYA is running a great field hockey program. They've got football during our soccer season. Coach Paul at the Academy of Basketball is bringing a lot of kids from Acton down there. And you find a lot of parents who are what I would say typically engaged in the coaching aspect of it, taking their kids down where there's some, you have to pay more, but it's a lot less time on your hands, and you're gonna get coaches. We get volunteers. Some of theirs are volunteers as well, but they get coaches who played in college, and those are right down the street.
Academy of Basketball?
Yep, that, and the SSYA program, Stanford Soccer, they've got some great stuff, and those families that are willing to drive and commit financially, they are, which is great, but it takes a
Commitment of the parents?
commitment on the parents, and it takes
A bite out of us.
a bite out of us, yeah, especially with some committed people, people who are, who have traditionally given a lot of time to the rec.
It is, I'd like to actually, if we could just take a minute to make a plug for Acton Rec. People, should be reminded, it is only $20 per child to play.
Yeah.
There's a family maximum of $60 per season, and that's even negotiable. If your family can't pull off that 60, they will find a way to have your child play. There are no uniform costs. You might have to buy a mouth guard or some shin guards, but shin guards certainly, there's people in town that would be happy to share those things with your kids. You don't need cleats. A lot of our kids play in sneakers. And unfortunately, this past year, my daughter Nadia, who has played with Acton Rec for years, she signed up as a senior for soccer, senior level, and there just simply were not enough kids signed up to play. And it was a real shame. She didn't want to go down to Sanford because she doesn't like the competitive level at Sanford. She really thrives in the fun-focused, team spirit-focused Acton Rec Department, which I really think is a great aspect of Acton Rec. I've coached for a couple of seasons. That was a lot of fun, and even though I do not have amazing soccer skills, I think I was able to help the K through 2 crowd have fun on the field. And the coaches that my girls have been fantastic. I mean, Pete Belanger was perfect for Nadia. He got exactly the kind of spirit of fun that she wanted. Russ Wilkinson was an amazing basketball coach for my daughter Sophia. She is not an athlete in any way, shape, or form, and Russ made her feel at home and welcome and cared for. It's a great program. If you have kids, really, they could use your support.
Yeah, and we're looking now, we've got some younger families that we've realized that, that's where we've got to go. Pete and I were just talking tonight, we were thinking about the people who, through the sleight of hand, brought us in the door, and then, once you're here, we're here.
Asks you,
Yeah.
don't really know, how to go about getting started. I guess that's...
We had a new volunteer this year for soccer, ran the program, which was great. And we've got a new family, young family, who has run soccer, had a baby this year, but has run basketball, but had a baby this year, and will be back next year. So we're starting to see that, but we're really hoping to bring some more families in.
John Spectelli, are they still involved?
John is still our treasurer, but he's, his kids are done, pretty much, and, but he stays on anyways, but we're really trying to find somebody else. Mark has moved on, although he did help coach this year, so he's still got a kid coaching.
He's out there on Saturdays raking all day, all by himself,
Yeah.
Put a lot of time over and above, that people don't realize, and sweeping the basketball courts off, and,
Yeah, I think probably any parent that's had a child involved with the rec, is very appreciative.
What you
And,
guys...
what we've got there is just an awesome thing for the kids. My son has played basketball and baseball, and it's phenomenal.
Once again, it's one of those situations where people don't realize all you guys do, that aren't involved, that don't take the time to, get down there and see all this stuff firsthand, It's a great program.
It is, and we got to do a better job of showing people that.
Opportunity,
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure you could get some videos up on the cable channel, a game or two,
And
I think that would be a great idea.
town
our
programming.
cheerleaders, come on, what other town has such an amazing squad of, kindergarten through 4th graders in cute outfits? It's just too much. I love it.
Ken, I had thought that what you were saying earlier was that the difference in the budget was, the decrease in the budget is because there were more kids. I assumed that the stipends were allowing a decrease in the value, the extra money from the town, but...
No.
How does that work in general?
Well, so you'll see at the bottom of the request, we have put in that the rec department will hopefully raise $3,000 this year. That number has come down each of the last couple of years because of the number of kids. But with the number of kids coming down, it's less helmets you need to buy. Like, for example, last year we had 2 Pee-wee baseball teams, T-ball, and 2 coach pitch teams. The year before that, we were putting 6 teams on the field. So I've been able to, take some of those bags and, consolidate. Didn't have to buy new helmets. John has been very wise about sending us, when he finds a deal, we'll take advantage of it, and he has done well to make sure that either through reimbursements or the PO process, we find a way to take advantage of those deals, whether it be online or, so he's found ways to help us reduce our equipment budget, even our trophy budget. We've been able to bring those things down that way as well. And just the smaller number that you're buying.
His kids have moved on, but he's still involved, John.
He is, yeah.
And also, I think to clarify, what I was hearing Paul ask, this is the budget request that we're seeing, the $12,960. That will go on to the warrant as what we are asking the permission to appropriate.
Right.
But we will only be asking to raise through taxation the 9,960.
Ah,
So it will be a two-part warrant article. Raise throughout taxation is one number, appropriate.
okay, so I'm definitely getting the impression that you guys have numbers that I don't, because some of the ones you were talking about I have, and
Well,
other
we don't
ones do
have those
not.
either. I think that there's been a disconnect, it's okay, but what I'm hearing from you is that you're planning on raising 3,000?
Correct.
So I'm just taking the 12,960, I'm subtracting out that 3,000. We went through this process last year, wanted to make sure that the rec department, their money that they were raising was not going into the kind of the generic abyss of the general fund. And so by splitting off what we were raising through taxation from what we were appropriating, and then we also set it up so that the rec department is one of the rollover funds.
I was just
So
about
if
to
they have
ask that,
capital
yeah.
improvements that they wish to do, and they do a lot of fundraising efforts for that year, we don't have permission to appropriate above and beyond for that year, but they can roll those funds over into a capital reserve account for the following.
Are there any anticipated maintenance costs that you see associated with fuel, like the mowing of the field? See that as
We set up,
being an increase this year, or is that?
we set up a two-year contract, and I believe we have one complete, and we've got one more. I don't see that being passed on to us.
Okay, that's a solid number then.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. We will have to probably send out bids again next year. But
You partner with 4-H and use sheep.
They pull the grass out on that.
That's,
Just drop it close,
that's definitely going green.
fertilization and mowing all at the same time, just tossing it out.
Right.
Anyone else, anything for Ken?
Oh, that's great.
So last year, we authorized expenditure of 13.8 and then included 96.10 for taxation. So
Right.
it's roughly equivalent.
Since our population is changing, you might want to start T-ball for seniors.
You know, yeah, I wonder, are those numbers that you guys keep on
Happen to the
file?
populace.
How many kids are in our elementary school? Is that something that we as a committee can access?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We would love to see, we actually have been discussing about how we could woo the rec department into wanting to embrace some more adult activities. We realize it would involve a new fleet of volunteers. Certainly it would not rest on the shoulders of the people that have already given so much, but it would be wonderful to see where we are. We are an aging population. I mean, our town demographic is shifting. We are by far 50% of the population is over 50, so we might as well embrace that. And I would love to play on a softball team in the spring. How much fun would that be?
Yeah.
I mean,
I think it's,
Would it at least be coach pitch?
yes, absolutely.
But how much more is it going to cost for canes, seeing eye dogs, and wheelchairs?
Bring your own prosthetics.
You know, as an additional plug for the rec department, my coach pitch basketball coach for Nadia always let me have a turn at bat, so I could hit the ball. So,
I was not aware of that.
very user-friendly, very user-friendly.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ken.
Thanks for all the work you do.
Thank you. Yeah. And Mr. Shields, I wanted to let you know that we will make sure to give you a call if we bump a meeting from here on out. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ken.
Great. Does anyone have anything else for this evening?
The only thing I have is, I believe, I spoke to the principal, and she'd like all three selectmen to be at the kid correspondent when they come in. When is that? Channel 13, she wanted to have you folks get a hold of her, so I guess they want the selectmen there and maybe a few firefighters in uniform. Since the whole town put them over the top, they want to make it as much town as possible, so.
That's a nice thought.
You can either talk to Cheryl Canary, or Cheryl's daughter was a little girl on it, or you can talk to Trish Halliday. I guess they want to make it, I think it's the 23rd, where Jeff Peterson's coming down from Channel 13, and they're going to be on it, so. I think they want all three selectmen there, you know?
23rd, what is that? 26th is a
Wednesday.
Saturday, 25th, 24th, 23rd, a Wednesday?
Yes,
Is it the 23rd, Andy?
I believe so.
I think it is. Just something to think about. I don't know whether you talk to Chief Walsh, have a few firefighters there in uniform.
Part of their newscast was about fire department.
Brian Beal.
Brian and the fire truck out in the yard and everything, so.
There was a whole town that voted, and that's how the parents feel, and the principal, and as many, you know, she just thought it'd be a good idea, and I said, well, I'll mention it to them, so.
If I can calm my staff into watching my students, I'll be there.
And do we have an idea of time?
I don't.
It'll be during the school day, for sure, because
Yeah.
Is there a day?
It's the
It's on the
23rd.
it's on the school website.
But they're gonna make a big deal, they're gonna have a rally in the gymnasium, I guess.
Yep, so next Wednesday, so maybe like at 2 if it's an assembly time normally?
No, I don't think it's at 2 o'clock. I'd have to double check.
the kids will start going after that, so it'll be.
Well, they usually have assembly at 2:10 though, so I was just wondering if they,
If you folks can push it out to the public, maybe your next meeting or something before, and ask you where the whole, their idea is the whole community vote to put them over the top, so.
We need to continue that little town that could mentality, right?
Put a slide up.
I'm sorry?
I'll have Trish call you and put up a slide about this.
Sure.
Okay.
as a
Like
town
I said,
event.
it is on the school website on the
Okay.
calendar. Yeah,
Great.
But we can put it on the cable channel too.
yeah.
Great for the two little kids, you know, in the hall, you know.
And Brooke and, Mr. Howes, what's Kyle?
Kyle.
Yes. Excellent.
I've never spent so much time on the computer.
They look great though, they look great on the video.
It wasn't so much the computer, with the lack of sleep.
Plus Brian Beal up to want to honor Brian, you know, so I think it'd be a nice, he's a good guy.
Dedicated voters indeed. All right, gentlemen, anything?
Well, yeah, I got it. Check, anything else?
All right, is everybody ready to say goodnight until next Wednesday?
Thank you all very much.
Yes.
Second.
All right. And then this workshop is officially adjourned. We'll see everybody next Wednesday, same place, same time,
Sounds good?
for the transfer station and fire department, and we hope road commissioner rates, perhaps.